Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, I've got a very special guest with me, Zoe Wooton, who came to me, we've just worked out about 8 years ago. And so good morning, Zoe. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. We have a croaky voice. I'm not too sure why. Probably because I stayed up to watch Watford last night on the television till midnight. All right, as usual, just to fill everybody in, as usual, what we're trying to do, we're going to interview Zoe, who was one of my PP patients 8 years ago, and we've seen each other several times since. But the idea of this is that you ask your questions, and I've got a list of questions, and she will do her best to answer them. If not, she'll throw them at me. But it's all about giving you tips and information so you, the viewer, can increase your personal odds of survival with the same cancer. So Zoe, why don't you kick off with the basics? Why not tell everybody when you were diagnosed and what you actually had?
Yes, I was diagnosed in 2014. At the time I was working in the Middle East, in Kuwait. I was diagnosed with ER+ breast cancer that had spread to 6 lymph nodes. It turns out the diagnosis wasn't correct to start with. So when I came back to UK, I was diagnosed again. But it wasn't until my surgery in 2015 that I had the correct diagnosis and that they knew exactly the real extent of how much my cancer has spread, and also that they confirmed I will need chemo and radio at that point.
They told you it was in 6 lymph nodes, yes?
Yes.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you got the diagnosis and it was confirmed it was in 6 lymph nodes?
It was very scary. I remember it was a Friday when I was told that they actually now have correct diagnosis. They know that it has spread and that I will have to come back on a Monday, the following Monday, to have a scan, because they now suspect that it could have, maybe it has spread to other organs like liver, maybe bones as well. And so I had a whole weekend to think about what could potentially happen. It was the worst weekend of my life. And I have, at that point, redone my will. I was preparing for the worst. And I felt completely out of control, very frightened and alone.
And how old were you at the time, 2014? Can I ask? A gentleman asked a lady's age.
47.
You were 47 at the time?
Yes.
So, and you just actually been through some trauma, hadn't you?
Yes. I've gone through a divorce, and my life was quite unbalanced. I was very focused, threw myself into work, and I was self-employed business consultant, so I work very, very long hours. I worked weekends. And I knew very little about nutrition, so my diet wasn't right. Emotionally, I wasn't that well, having gone through divorce. And it wasn't until I met you that I realized how unbalanced my life was and how I need to take care of myself. I really didn't know how to do it. So I think there are a lot of different components as to why I think I got very, very unwell and got cancer.
Yeah. So the first question I've got from Jessie Sharp, I think really gets it out of the way. She says, does your family have a history of cancer, or were you the first one up?
My mom also had cancer over 20 years ago. But I was tested for BRCA 1 and 2, and it doesn't seem to be connected. But my mom is also a cancer survivor, and she's very well.
Okay, good. 2 of you. Okay. Trudy asks, I went to see Chris as soon as I was diagnosed. 3 people recommended him. At what point did you see him?
I unfortunately just before my surgery, but I think that I should have seen Chris probably in 2010, because about 4 years before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was quite unwell. I was getting sick very frequently. Every 2 or 3 months, I would be down with bronchitis type of symptoms for about a whole week. So in bed for a whole week, coughing for about 2, 3. I've seen many different doctors, GP specialists. They tested me for different things, allergies. They look at my lungs, all sorts of different things. And nobody knew what's wrong with me. So I think if I, at that point, had Chris on my side, I probably I wouldn't develop cancer, or at least if it would happen, it wouldn't be as bad as it was.
Yeah, I think that's not uncommon. Yeah. We do see people getting ill, and then it's the final step in the illness process. We do see that. Hang on, I've got the questions all written down. Let's just open the next one up. This is from Sheila Anderson, who says, did you have FEC or Taxol? That's our funny story, isn't it? Between you and me. Yeah, Go on, you can tell everybody. Yeah. Did you have FEC or Taxol?
Well, it's actually all down to you. I was going to have it all, but I think thanks to your recommendation, I went to Royal Marsden, who were treating me, and I don't remember exactly what happened. So perhaps you can remind me.
I remember that you were going to have FEC, right? Yes. This is a true story, folks. I'll probably get locked up for it by the power police. You're going to have FEC, and then they were going to give you 3 or so rounds of docetaxel. And I remember saying it doesn't work very well. And I should explain to everybody, Zoe, I love her dearly because she's South African, and I played loads of sport against South Africans, and they don't take prisoners. She's a very determined girl. And she went in to see Johnston. And the next day she came to me and she said, I walked in there and I told him, Chris Woollams doesn't think docetaxel is very good. So he put me onto Taxol. So he put me onto paclitaxel. And I have a little thing about paclitaxel, which is I don't like it being used on its own. That's right, isn't it? And I went, oh no. And the next day or 2 days later, I sent you to Care Oncology. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and they switched you, didn't they? You said to them, Chris Woollams said, I shouldn't have Taxotere. And then, so I told Johnson that, and he said, Chris Woollams is absolutely right. And so he gave me Taxol, but Chris doesn't like that either. So paclitaxel. So they said, and I remember it very well, they said that you'd been put on FEC, and then you were going to get 14 weeks. No, you were going to get 10 weeks of high dose paclitaxel, 10 weeks of high dose paclitaxel, which I think was going to be something like 200 milligrams. Don't quote me on that because I'm not a doctor. But what happened at Care Oncology, they said, Chris is absolutely right, and you shouldn't be taking that. We think you should be doing Taxol, paclitaxel every other week for 14 weeks, not 10. And so you have a week on, a week off, because then you get the benefit of the fact that some drugs actually boost your immune response if you take them a week on, a week off. And I remember them offering to ring Johnston, but I cannot remember the Royal Marsden because they knew him, and I cannot remember whether they did it or not. I think they did.
Yes, they did. Yes.
So my name is probably mud to Johnston at the Royal Marsden. No, he knows me from a few other patients too. Right, Amy Lewis. So the answer is she had paclitaxel, FEC, and then paclitaxel. Amy Lewis asked, what made you go to Care Oncology? Because I put it in the notes. And did you have doxycycline, which frightens me because it runs counter to the idea of rebuilding your body?
Yes, well, it was you, Chris, that mentioned Care Oncology and their research, which was promising. And I thought, my thought process was that I wanted to try almost anything in the first 2 or 3 years, because statistically, if the cancer doesn't come back in those 2 or 3 years, then the odds are in your favor. So I thought for 2 or 3 years, I was willing to try anything. And also, my mom, who had cancer 20 or so years ago, is diabetic. So she was on metformin, and metformin is part of care oncology protocol. So I thought, well, it worked really well for my mom, and I was willing to try. And yes, doxycycline was part of it, but I was on it for about 1.5 years, and then I continued with metformin, but dropped out other doxycycline and other.
So you took doxycycline for 6.5 years?
No. For 2 years.
For 2 years.
Okay.
2 years. Okay. So right. Let me explain. When you came to me, I remember it well because we had several chats. And I remember that you were going to go on these quite high dose chemos. And I first built an off-label drugs protocol for somebody back in 2007. So I've been doing it quite often. Care Oncology opened their doors in 2012, and I knew Raphael quite well there, so I used to use them. So it seemed to me that we ought to literally build concentric circles in this plan with you. And so I had no problem with giving you doxycycline, for example, and sending you to Care Oncology, because you were on heavy duty drugs anyway. So I couldn't, the doxycycline wouldn't have screwed your gut up any more than the actual drugs would. And you've been on the drugs for 6-9 months anyway. So you took metformin, atorvastatin, mebendazole and doxycycline. And how long did you do the 4 drugs for?
The 4 drugs, about 2 years.
About 2 years.
But then I continued metformin for another 6. But also I think what gave me a lot of confidence is that when we discussed it, we were planning to do a gut rebuild program anyway. Once I finished with the protocol. So I thought, well, no problem there,
I think looking back, our attitude was, let's just get rid of this thing, because it was in 6 lymph nodes and we were worried where else it might have gone. Although nothing was showing on the scans, you never know whether you got micrometastasis or so. So we did kind of sling the kitchen sink at it for a couple of years, I think. We saw each other several times, didn't we? So Jenny Jones asked, did you also have surgery? If so, how did you prepare for that? Well, you did have surgery, but it was the start before you knew me. So what did you do? Just go and say, how sharp's the scalpel? What did you do?
I didn't really prepare because like you say, I didn't know you, but my surgeon was a young lady in her probably mid-30s. And she was very open-minded. And she's asked me something that at the time I didn't understand. She said, when was your last period? So we can look at your monthly cycle and plan your surgery. And I thought, I just answered, but I didn't really understand what that was about. And then you asked me the same question when I saw you. Was that something that was considered? And then you explained that it was actually very important when you have your surgery. So I think that I was very fortunate, very lucky, not because I understood and prepared, but because I just had the right person.
Well, it's absolutely true. There is research, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, it's Guy's, and it says that you have better survival chances if you have surgery in the second half of your cycle rather than the first half of your cycle. And it's all to do with estrogen dominance in the body. And no surgeon ever seems to know about it. I mean, there were 2 studies. It wasn't once, there were 2 studies. And so I think you did have a very good surgeon who obviously knew.
Yes. But if you were with me, what would you suggest that I do to prepare for surgery?
What would if I'd been with you, I'd have told you to take total vitamin E. Vitamin E is in 4 tocopherols, 4 tocotrienols. I would have told you to take it for a month before the surgery. I'd have told you to come off all supplements about 3 days before the surgery. I'd have told you to meditate before the surgery. Believe it or not, there's research showing if people meditate for about 20 minutes in the 3 hours, 4 hours before surgery, they lose 40% less blood. I would have told you to go back on the month of vitamin E afterwards. It's very, very, very healing. And I would have put you onto oregano oil, rotated probably with artemisinin for about 8 weeks afterwards, because all those antibiotics tend to give people high yeast. And about a week afterwards, I would have put you on loratadine, an antihistamine. So there was minimal chance of it spreading. Cancer cells take on board histamines. They have 6 times the receptors of a healthy cell. And when they take on histamines, it upregulates them. So the histamines make them more aggressive and make them a bit more swollen and sticky, so they can go off around the body and stick to things. And there's research from the Karolinska, for example, for breast cancer, showing that women who take an antihistamine survive much longer. And they pulled 69,000 women out of the files, not literally, I think they're documents. And they showed that the women with breast cancer who took loratadine, that was 30% more survival. And the next one was about 18% survival. So I'd have given you that. Okay. And then I'd have sort of started rebuilding you. But you were going on to the chemo. So I would have left it until after the chemo.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't, I don't think we knew too much about loratadine in those days, did we?
No, I've never heard of it, actually.
No, I think I came across it about 2012.
Yeah.
All right. Now we've got Siobhan says, did you have tamoxifen? And if so, at what dose? 5 milligrams or 20? So what have they put you on, in other words?
Yes, tamoxifen, 20 for 5 years.
So you went on from 2014 after everything, 2015, onto tamoxifen for 5 years to 2020. Then what?
Nothing. That was it. 5 years.
All right. She is going to come back and see me, aren't you? You're going to come back and see, and we're going to put you on some anti-estrogens. I think we need to have a little look at this. Nice, healthy ones. All right. Did you have radiotherapy? Because Jane Seeger says, how did you protect yourself from radiotherapy damage?
Yes, I had radiotherapy. Chris suggested that I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I actually had that during my chemo as well.
Yeah.
And before every treatment, they measured the level of oxygen in your body. Mine was always 100%. To amazement of all the staff there, and I think that was incredible. I also had acupuncture, and it was also Chris's recommendation, and loads of supplements. By that point, I've changed my life completely. Chris suggested that I need to get rid of all the chemicals in my place, whether that's for cleaning, whether those are the products that I put on my body, my hair, and get everything that it's organic, that it's eco, then change my diet completely. I had at that point, very strict diet of green smoothies every single morning. Everything was organic. I went vegan for 2 years. I think all those things in combination really helped me, pack my body with nutrients as much as possible. I had loads of supplements, and I think emotionally, to know, Chris, that you were always there for me, and to have somebody that you trust that literally holds your hand through the whole process. That was, you're not alone. That meant the world to me. So I think all those things together really helped me through chemo and radio.
Hyperbaric oxygen is actually wonderful, really, because it actually makes chemo and radio work better. And it reduces the side effects. And it does it because if you have any tumors around, they actually live in an anaerobic state. It's called hypoxia. And they bend your programs in your body to their own use, but it's in an area of low oxygen. And so, for example, they bend one of your programs to actually fight the chemo off and make radiotherapy not work as well. And so when you have hyperbaric oxygen, all you're doing is overloading any mini tumors around the body. And what you're doing then is creating a state of hyperoxia, and suddenly the tumor's thrown completely and its defenses can't work. So the chemo and the radio kill more. I mean, there's loads of research. There's 90 something studies on it in America. So, that's how it works. It's not rocket science, and it's a shame oncologists don't use it. Was it left breast or right breast?
Left.
The emotional breast. Do you know that? Do you know that this is the emotional breast and the other one is the practical breast? At this point, people think I'm a complete quack. I know. I understand that. Green smoothies are good for you. Green smoothies, because in your case, green smoothies, kale, broccoli, things like this are very anti-estrogenic. They oxygenate you, but they also give you glutathione. And I've been doing a lot of work lately on glutathione. Did you take melatonin by any chance?
Yes, I can take melatonin.
Yeah. Okay. Glutathione is it's called the master antioxidant, and it actually gets all around your cells and cleans them up. Okay, the microenvironment of the cells. So glutathione is terribly, terribly important. But melatonin, I've just discovered something. I'm going to do a show on melatonin, but I've just discovered something very important. Everybody thinks you make melatonin here from the pineal gland and it helps you go to sleep. Well, they've now found over the last 2 years that you make melatonin in your mitochondria. And because the mitochondria are the power stations, and what the mitochondria do is they obviously process, your food stuffs and oxygen and so on, so they can make power. But like any power station, they make waste. And they go big time during the day. Mm-hmm. So they've now found that actually your mitochondria make melatonin to clean up the environment. And melatonin actually prompts you to make more glutathione from those green juices. And so melatonin you're making all day long in your mitochondria, but in your pineal gland at nighttime. And it's with glutathione, it cleans you up. And here's an interesting thing. How do you make melatonin during the day? Answer: infrared light from the sunshine. Now, infrared goes through everything, goes through clouds. So you can even get it on a cloudy day, and it can go through your clothes, it can go through bone, and it can literally turn on all your mitochondria to make melatonin, just small amounts in your mitochondria. So melatonin is a really good thing to take if you've got estrogen-driven breast cancer, because it works against estrogen, helps you sleep, and it actually prompts glutathione, which is in your green juices. So it all works together to clean you up.
Oh, wonderful. But I do have a question, and you might know the answer. Why is it so difficult to get melatonin supplement in the UK? In fact, you can't get it. I'm getting it from Spain.
Because the drug companies don't like it. It's as simple as that. They say, oh, well, look, it's a hormone. We can't have people going in the shops and buying a hormone. But as you know, in America, you can buy 20 milligrams from the gas station. But in America, I just watched a couple of YouTubes the other day, and they're trying to say it's dangerous. Well, I haven't found any research that says melatonin is any way dangerous. So I think they're going to try and restrict it in America. But we do, you could write, anybody watching this, you can write to care.clinic158, care.clinic158@gmail.com and say, Chris Woollams sent you. They're doctors, they prescribe things, and they could turn you down. They don't do it just because Chris Woollams said so, because I'm not a doctor. Okay.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's no problem. I'm very keen on these things. And actually, just for the last point, vitamin D fits with them all. See, vitamin D, which you get from directly from UVB, that end of the light spectrum, fits with infrared, which comes from that end of the light spectrum, and it fits with glutathione. So the whole thing is a little triangle, and that's why people in Sardinia live a long, long time. Okay, they live to 100 more than anywhere else in the world. Siobhan asks, do you continue to have regular screening, i.e. mammograms or PET scan, after you finish your protocol with Chris?
I only had one PET scan, and that was when, they thought that my cancer had spread into other organs. And I had regular mammograms for 5 years, so every year. And I haven't had one in the last 2 years, because now I've gone back to 3-year cycle. And I had probably 1 or 2 ultrasounds in that period.
So now they've moved to a 3-year cycle now. So Johnson signed you off, has he?
Yes.
You told me a story. You told me a story. We ought to tell people. You said to Johnson said, well, you're fine. You've beaten this, and signed you off. And you said, you want to know how I've done it? And he said, no. Do you remember telling me that? Yeah. That's terrible, isn't it? It can surely spare you 1 minute, even if you said I ate bat's wings or something. Terrible, isn't it? Anyway, never mind. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Rebecca Runnell says, what were the main supplements you took when having the chemo and care oncology protocol together?
I don't remember all of them. You might remember better than me. But I know that the key ones were vitamin D and K2, and I'm still on that. Fish oil, DIM, melatonin. But it was a cocktail of other things as well. Plus, Chris, you're always very keen and always said to me that a lot of vitamins and nutrients I need to get from food directly, hence green smoothies and tons of vegetables that I ate at the time. I still do. Do you remember any other?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It would have been D3, K2, fish oils, turmeric, DIM, melatonin. That would basically have been it, because you were on metformin. I use berberine, but you were on metformin anyway, and you were on atorvastatin. There would have been no need for me to give you something like lycopene. So I would have been quite happy. Mebendazole is a cancer killer, and it also cuts your blood sugar. And then doxycycline. I always feel about doxycycline, if it's going to work, it works quickly. It works in the first 6 months to a year. And as I said, you were on chemo, so you could take it then, and we were going to rebuild you immediately afterwards. So Mary Cheek asks, did you do one of Chris's gut rebuilds when you finished your drugs, and did it work?
Yes, Mary, I did it twice. I did it after my protocol finished. And then when I felt well enough, I decided I wanted to travel. And I went to Southeast Asia for 6 months. And then I traveled in Africa for 3 months and spoke to Chris after that. And Chris said, it's probably a good idea to do it again, because when you travel a lot, you might pick up a bug or a parasite or something. So I did it twice, and it did work. So I recommend it.
So you did the whole thing. You did the parasite kill and the oregano and artemisinin. Okay.
Yeah.
So we did. Did it work? Well, she's here today. Have you got any stomach problems? No,
thank God.
Amanda McCleggan asks, have you stuck rigidly to the anti-cancer plan for the entire 8 years? Or do you allow yourself the odd naughty treat on special occasions?
That's a good question, but Chris has really changed my life. So certain aspects of how I live nowadays will never change. I'm really kind of very, I believe in clean living. I understand how important that is. So in certain aspects, it's who I am nowadays. I just very careful what I put on my body, in my body. I look after the environment that I live in. and I try to stay away from any chemicals. I have water filters. I have Epsom salt baths. I try to exercise or move my body and be as healthy as I can. I love walking and hiking. I like to be in nature. All these things that I didn't do before or thought didn't have time for. I still do green smoothies, and I follow Chris's Mediterranean diet because I believe it's one of the best options for longevity, for health. I have very dark chocolate, so I have chocolate again because I avoided sugar for quite some time. And I sometimes have red wine, sulfate-free. And I'm more relaxed about sometimes going to a restaurant and have food with my friends. But I believe, like Chris explained this to me, it's what we do most often, continuously on daily basis, I suppose, one-off. So yeah, I do have treats from time to time. I think it's important that we all do. And I think, Chris, I think you told me once something that I will never forget. It's a little bit like if you bang your knee once in a while, nothing happens. Your body can deal with it. You have a little bruise, maybe it hurts a little bit, but you're okay. But if you were to do it every single day continuously, you probably lose your leg. So it's what we do on every day. What, if you have healthy habits, you can have a treat, I believe. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think that's right. I should use that again. My memory's gone. What about dairy?
Oh, I'm dairy free.
You're dairy free.
Sometimes I went to Chamonix last year in the summer, and I had some raw unpasteurized cheese, and it was delicious. But then again, that's due to you, Chris, explaining what is good dairy and what's acceptable and what's good for you, actually, what's healthy.
Yeah, I think swings and roundabouts. I think with dairy, I mean, it's very, very difficult on the dairy front now. There's been lots of research lately saying dairy is not bad, but it's the Empire Strikes Back, I think, in research terms. So I think there's a lot of research which says dairy is not the thing to have when you've got estrogen-driven cancers. But I think if you could have a little bit of cheese and it can be raw or unpasteurized, I think the benefits outweigh the problems. I'm sure they do. I think, you see, it's what I said earlier on. You're a very determined person. South Africans are, and you've got your plan and you've stuck to it. And good on you, really. I think that's how you beat it. Amanda also asks, may I also ask what supplements you take now, 8 years on?
I still try to get most of my nutrients from food. And I'm lucky that I like fermented foods as well. Sauerkraut and kimchi are kind of one of my favorites. And with green smoothies, I get a lot of fiber. But I do take a good fish oil supplement, vitamin D, especially in the winter, because I just think that probably that's the time when I don't get enough of vitamin D. Melatonin, because I've noticed that it really improves the quality of sleep. And I think that's about it, actually. Oh yes, and DIM. I take DIM.
Yeah, why not? So you're D3K2 still, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, K2.
Is there anything else that you would suggest would be a good idea?
Protects the bones, it protects the liver, so it does lots of other things. It's good. Okay. Rose Brady asks, what did you do to change your life? Well, I think we just heard that, really. And she goes on to say, do you think cancer is a wake-up call, as Chris is always telling us?
Absolutely. Yes, I really think so.
I tell people that, they've got to understand that even if they're grade 3 or grade 4, cancer is not terminal. That terminal means that doctors have run out of of treatments. That's what he means. They've got nothing else to treat you with. That's why they say you're terminal. So
Yeah.
I always just say to people, it's a wake-up call. You just understand you've got to wake up. And usually it comes after, as it did with you, comes after a whole lot of illnesses. And what I try and do is just build people with a healthy body, really. We see little
yeah, it really changes also your perspective on life and what you think it's important in life. Because you then sort of like reconsider and you think, okay, well, I've been working so hard and I thought that I need to get X, Y, and Z, and that really would change something in my life. But it really, that's not the case. It's really that you help, that's most important, and the people that you love and they're around you. So it does changes a lot, and it's definitely a wake-up call to change your lifestyle and start looking after yourself better.
What things did you learn? What was you? Anything you would have done?
Things I just mentioned. Things that I've just mentioned.
All right. What would you have done? Anything you would have done differently if you look back at life 8 years ago?
Well, I wish that I met Chris earlier. And like I said, in 2010, I was starting getting unwell. And I wish that I met you then, Chris. That I took more responsibility for my own health. I was relying on doctors to tell me what's wrong with me. Well, and they just prescribed antibiotics most of the time. And I went off believing that they know better and they would help me. But if I met you, I believe in 2010, my story would have been different. So that's my biggest thing. I think we all have to take responsibility for our own health and don't accept that, doctors know better. Ask for a second opinion from someone like Chris.
Are there 3 tips you could pass on to the viewers? There are 3 little tips you can say to someone who's just starting out. I know we've got a number of people who literally are just starting out with their estrogen-driven cancers. What would you say?
Find an expert you trust. That's my number one. Somebody like Chris who can help you, can be there for you. Number 2, nutrition is really, really important. And then really follow the protocol. It works. And it will help you. You will start feeling better, and have faith.
All right. Thank you. Are you just looking at your life going forward now? What are you doing next in your life?
I'm looking to get a little job or something. I'm ready for maybe a new adventure. So that would be it. And I'm looking forward to being able to travel again post-corona havoc. So those are the things.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I know we're going to have a little chat about protocols moving forward in a couple of weeks' time anyway. I mean, that's one of the things I would say. Well, we didn't just sort of meet once, did we? We met sort of 4, 5, 6 times for a chat, because it's an evolving feast, cancer, and you have to meet several times. I'm really sure about that. But what I'd like to do is thank you on behalf of me and the Sunday show. But also on behalf of all the people who are watching this and are going to watch it. We're going to have a subscribe button shortly. It'll be put on there by my 12-year-old son. I'm totally incompetent with things like YouTube. I would say we are going to feature melatonin in a upcoming show. And we've also got Philippa Darbury coming at some point soon to tell us all about toxins and what they can do in estrogen-driven cancer and so on. She's an expert on it, professor at Reading University. So we've got a few things coming on breast cancer. Okay. And this show has actually been sponsored by Pink Ribbon, who are very generously give money to Cancer Active, which is really nice of them. So thank you. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Pink Ribbon. Thank everybody for watching this.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. All the best, Zoe. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.